government partner of ECSC 2021 is National Cyber and Information Security Agency, NÚKIB in short. I would like to welcome in our studio its director, Karel Řehka. Welcome.
Thanks for the invitation.
This year's ECSC has a sci-fi background. Let's stay in the realm of fantasy a little bit more. How would Czech Republic look in an alternative universe where there's no NÚKIB?
Well, yeah, it would look very different. If you, for example, had a cyber incident, cyber attack, and you would like to call someone, there would be no one to pick up the phone. And more importantly, the Czech Republic wouldn't have those most important systems identified because we also do the regulation. So we identify the most critical and important systems, and that are the systems that we need to safeguard. So that wouldn't be identified. You wouldn't have anyone to call if you had an incident, but also, for example, we wouldn't be able to handle the classified information in information systems, or we wouldn't have the classified communication.
Prevention, in your case, means mostly regulation. You set security standards for information systems that are important for the operation of the state, and you also establish national cybersecurity strategies. Well, what are the priorities?
Well, we had a new national cybersecurity strategy that was approved by government last year. This strategy is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is called confidence in cyberspace, and it's about having the robust enough and secure systems, having a complex cooperation within the state, and also having the capability of cyber defense against the serious attacks. And the second pillar is called the strong and reliable alliances. And it's about the international cooperation, because cyberspace has no geographic boundaries. So you cannot just work on your own. You have to cooperate with partners and allies. And the third pillar is called a resilient society. And it's about building the resilience of the whole society. So it's about education, both educating experts, but also educating the wide society, and having a good awareness about the cybersecurity. But I would say the most important theme of the strategy is that you cannot achieve the cybersecurity by only one organization or one agency, and you really need to cooperate. So it's about the teamwork, and it's about cooperation across the whole society.
Well, Czech attitude towards cybersecurity is based mainly on risk management. How do you translate this abstract concept into exact reality?
Well, I would say the main word would be scalable. It's a scalable approach. It's not everything or nothing. It's you need to scale. So basically what you do in the risk-based approach is that you identify what is valuable for you, your values, whether it's a data or systems, people, or processes. And then you also identify what vulnerabilities you have. And then you have to also identify the threats. And then you assess the risk. So basically you're looking at what threats can exploit your vulnerabilities and can threaten your most important values. And then you, based on the level of the risk, basically, you then have to decide. So some risks you have to omit completely. Some risks you cannot avoid completely, so you have to mitigate them. And maybe some risks you may accept because it's necessary. So it's a scalable approach. And that's really important. So you basically focus on what is most important.
How many incidents happen every year? How many of them severe, and which types are the most common?
Well, it is really hard to say, and we don't have the exact statistics, because what you have to realize is that what NÚKIB is doing, it's only the tip of the iceberg. In reality, there's happening much more, but we don't learn about it. But even what we register is pretty significant numbers. So for last year, we had about 468 reports of different incidents at our level. And we were somehow involved in dealing with 99 kind of a serious incidents. So the number is significant, but still it's only tip of the iceberg. So there's much more going on without us knowing it.
Mm-hmm. And which types are the most common?
Well, the types it's different types, but I would say it's the same pretty much in the whole world. So usually the most common would be phishing campaigns, phishing emails, or more sophisticated spear phishing, and that could create the gateway for more serious attacks like ransomware. I mean, ransomware is probably the most famous now in the whole world, and it's on the rise, and it's the same in the Czech Republic.
Well, at NÚKIB, there is an action team to help to resolve these incidents. Is it even possible to defend yourself if prevention fails?
Well, it always depends on how well you prepare. It is you cannot be 100% secure. Everyone can be attacked, and it's okay. The impact then is usually the result of how well you were prepared. So yes, we have the governmental cyber or computer emergency response team, government CERT, and we kind of in case of serious incidents, we get the reports, we analyze it, and we both help to solve the incident, but we also take part in the investigation to make sure that we can prevent similar incidents somewhere else. And it's again, you know, the impact really depends on how well you prepared. If you're well prepared, usually if you do the good segmentation of the networks, for example, if you have the good data backups, then the impact is maybe less significant, and you may restore your operation very soon. If you don't prepare very well, then it may be really significant.
You prepare and coordinate cybernetic exercises, and you also participate at international exercises. What is the form of these events, and how are their scenarios developed?
Mm-hmm. So the exercises, it's not a random activity. It's always a very carefully pre-planned activity to be effective. It always depends on the training objective. So what do you want to achieve by the exercise, and also on the training audience. So who's the audience? Who needs to be trained, basically. And then in cybersecurity field, it's usually two main kinds of exercises. It's a technical or non-technical, or it can be also a hybrid, the combination of those two. And what we try to do, usually and again, depends on the training objective and the audience, but usually we try to present the complex scenarios. Because if you deal with a cyber incident, it's never isolated event. You don't just do technical parts or other parts. It's a complex problem. So you need to deal with the incident. You need to identify it. You need to report it. You need to do your crisis plans. You need to do the technical solutions, but also you usually have to deal with the legal issues. You need to communicate. You need to inform your customers, your maybe public, depending on what type of organization you are, and all those activities present the complex issues. So we usually want to present those complex issues and to be as realistic as possible. And then depend on the kind of exercise, obviously. It may be educational. You may just train your practices, but it may be also analytical. So you may test the new approaches. You may also discover things you don't know that you don't know, and that's really important about the exercises. And it's really the only chance to kind of go through the incidents and get ready without getting really harmed.
Well, you cooperate at the international level, we talked about that before, and you defend Czech Republic's positions in the field of cybersecurity. What is the form of this cooperation, and why is it important to have international allies?
Well, it is really important because the cyberspace has no physical boundaries. So anything happening abroad may affect us here, and everything happening here may affect others abroad. Plus, also the infrastructure sometimes doesn't have the strict boundaries. For example, you may have electricity grids, or you may have the pipelines or whatever, and it's crossing the border sometimes. So you need to kind of coordinate and synchronize the standards, the regulations. Also, it's important for the common European market, for example, because if you are a company and you need to go through certain certifications, you probably don't want to do it in every country separately, so you don't have one standard. So there's multiple issues, but also what is very important is if there's a campaign of serious attacks, it may really spread across the borders, and you need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to exchange the information and help each other. And there's multiple platforms. The EU is very important. I would say probably definitely the most important in this field, but also the NATO is very important in the defense field, but also there are other organizations, and it is really critical to cooperate.
Well, one of your many tasks are awareness and educational activities. Do you have any specific approach towards the younger target audience?
Yes, and as you mentioned, there's different kinds of audiences. There's the younger ones, but also others. Obviously, our primary audience is our constituency. So it's the state, organizations, or critical infrastructure. But because the third pillar of this cybersecurity strategy, as we mentioned, is the resilient society, it's very important to start building that awareness from the very young age. So for the younger kids, we usually have the programs that are kind of digestible for them. So we do cartoon type of games or educational activities. Then for the older children, we have things like using YouTubers or influencers that are well known in that community. And obviously, then for the adults, we have, for example, different modules of the e-learning courses. And the education, what is important in education, that you need to cover both the education of the specialists, because we lack in the specialists for the cybersecurity, but also the wider public. So we try to balance both.
Your cooperation with ECSC reflects your interest in students interested in cybersecurity. Are there also any internships or junior programs? Do you cooperate with schools?
Sure, we do cooperate with schools. Mostly it's universities, but also the high schools. And we have different kinds of cooperation. So, for example, we cooperate and we try to establish the good topics for the master thesis or bachelor's thesis. We also cooperate with students on working on those theses. Sometimes it's very valuable because they may work academically on things that we don't have capacity to work on, and it may be very useful for us as well. But we also provide internships and practical training for some students. And sometimes what happens is that students go through, we cooperate during their study, then they go through our training or internship in our agency, and then they become the members after the school, which is ideal model for us.
Yeah, I understand. Another of your tasks is cryptographic protection of classified information. That is quite familiar to our contestants, as many of the challenges have crypto background. In your opinion, how big a threat are quantum computers to the future of encryption? Is there any chance for efficient defense?
Yes, well, it is well known that it will be a threat towards I would say, the cryptographic tools we use today. But there's already research and development going on in this field to develop the post-quantum crypto tools, basically, and we also that's one of the areas we're looking at as well. And it's good that you mentioned this field of classified information, because it is also information and security or cybersecurity, but because this level of classified information, usually it's the most valuable data or most sensitive data of the state. Then you need to deploy other tools than you normally do for regular cybersecurity. So you need to have strong cryptography, but you also have to look at the electromagnetic emissions and things like that. So that's also a very important field of our agency. even though it's strategically important, but it's maybe not that publicly well known.
Well, possibly the most visible topic of cybersecurity is ransomware, as we mentioned before, because of the accidents in Czech hospitals that happened during the COVID-19 crisis. According to your incident handling methodologies, what is the policy in that case? Don't negotiate with the terrorists. Does that still apply?
Well, if you look at the from the perspective of the negotiation or payment or not paying, we always say don't pay because there's no guarantee you will get your data back or it won't be published anyway. That's the first thing. And there are cases where people pay and they don't get any data back. But also, just like you mentioned, it's a good comparison with the terrorism. You also kind of promote the problem, and you may motivate the others for the other attacks. However, saying that, paying is one thing, negotiating is the other one. So there are practices in Word, and there are opinions and techniques and procedures for negotiation, and tactically sometimes it may be useful to negotiate, maybe to buy the time and to deploy some protective measures and so on. But in the end of the day, we say you shouldn't pay. Never.
What is the role of cybersecurity and the defense of Czech Republic against hybrid threats?
Well, it is important, and the importance is growing because as the society is becoming more dependent on the information systems and the digital technologies, obviously it creates the vulnerabilities. So the cybersecurity goes through all kinds of security. Basically, it's you can see it in the foreign, let's say, diplomacy. You can see it in the military area or defense area, but also in the internal security. And hybrid threats. It's about being complex. Basically, it's about attacker is looking at the vulnerabilities of your society throughout the whole spectrum, and he's in a coordinated way. He's using different or exploiting different vulnerabilities. And cyber goes through basically everything. So very often, whether it's disinformation campaigns, whether it's a cyber attacks, whether it's whatever it is, usually there's some aspect of the cyber. So in today's world, usually if something happens in the physical world, you can see some reflection in the cyberspace and vice versa. And the hybrid threats problem, it's really about being coordinated. So what is really important is that we coordinate and we exchange the information. So for example, if there is cyber attack happening somewhere, it may be linked to other problem. It may be linked to physical attack somewhere. It may be linked to espionage campaign. It may be linked to disinformation campaign. And what is really important is that we as a state entities, but also as a private entities, that we cooperate together, we exchange the information, and that we can build a picture and have coordinated reaction.
Back to the sci-fi story of this year's challenge. What would you recommend to future space travelers? Warm socks in the case someone remotely switches off their heating, or to fly offline straight away?
Well, using the cybersecurity view, I would go through this risk-based approach. So I would identify the most important values, the threats and the risks and so on. So usually you would look at things like navigation, communications, engines, but I think you can never go wrong with the warm socks. So socks is good.
Well, thank you very much for the interview and for keeping us all safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation, and good luck with the ECSC.
Thank you.